force of others. It all began with the forging of the great movies. 3 were given to the original trilogy, immortal, wisest, and fairest of all trilogies. 6 to the fall of Vader, a great tragedy and redemption in families. And 9 movies were gifted to the Skywalker saga, who above all else desire nostalgia. For within these movies was bounded the strength and the will to govern over other fandoms. But they were all of them deceived, for another trilogy was made. In the land of Mordor, in the fires of Mount Doom, Tolkien and Peter Jackson forged in secret a master trilogy to combat all others. And in these movies they poured all their creativity, their heart and will to create timeless movies. One trilogy to rule them all. The Force of Others, a Star Wars podcast.
Hello there, and welcome to The Force of Others. I'm Matt Boitner.
I'm Zachary Owen Turner.
And I'm Lance Candler.
And today we're having our long-awaited franchise fight between Lord of the Rings and Star Wars. But before we get into all of that, because that is going to be a whole thing, we're just going to kind of, we are positive here. So we're going to talk about the things that we love about Lord of the Rings, the things that Dave Filoni has blatantly stolen from Lord of the Rings, and just kind of chat it up. Lance, our resident Lord of the Rings hater, is here, so it'll be a fun debate later on. So what do you? We have all done research about what has been taken. Do you want to kind of popcorn around of different things that we found?
Yeah, sure. Lance, me, and then Zach as the Lord of the Rings lover. But Lance, go first. What'd you find?
Yeah, so I found this interesting, I think it was an interview with Filoni where he talked about Bendu. Did y'all read that?
Yeah.
Where he said Bendu was kind of this Tom Bombadil character that had removed himself from the fight. And then there's that great scene in Rebels where I think it's Kanan has to go to him and say, you're part of this world. Like, you can't be removed from this.
Yeah.
And it was almost word for word the same line that one of the short guys gives to Treebeard, where he says, like, you are part of the world. Yeah, Hobbit.
Also, to just add another franchise in there, that's the 5th Doctor from Doctor Who.
That's Tom Baker? Yeah, there we go. We did it.
Nice.
The most obvious one that Dave has taken from Lord of the Rings, Ahsoka the White. Ahsoka the White is transparently, like, on the Ahsoka show, she's literally wearing gray, and then she's wearing white. It's very much Gandalf the Gray, Gandalf the White. It's the same story.
Yeah.
But Zach, over to you.
To reiterate that point, how they're like the original Star Wars was Blue Harvest, right? The working title, so that people don't know what you're working on. For Ahsoka, it was Stormcrow, which is what the people of Rohan call Gandalf. Just to like reiterate that Ahsoka is very much to him Gandalf.
Cool.
Lance, you find any others?
So the world between worlds is kind of like a Western lands place where when the immortal die, they go there and they can live there forever, or if you're Ahsoka, you get to come back.
Good pull.
I'm sitting here going, oh, right, the Western lands is where they sail at the end of the 3rd movie.
Yeah,
Valinor.
Or if you watch Rings of Power, that's where they come from at the beginning. Highly recommend Rings of Power if you want like actual cool, more like lore dives, a strong female character that leads the series, and just sick action. So
yeah, they do way better with Tolkien than Tolkien does.
The debate hasn't started yet.
Matt, you find any other ones?
A couple. But I mean, everybody knows every time a spider shows up, it's Dave Filoni referencing Shelob, especially the one from Mando season 3. We talked about it when we recapped it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he even said that the inspiration was Shelob and it was going to be a spider creature. And they eventually decided that's too literal. Let's make it a strange spider droid and a vampire man.
Nice.
But yeah, Shelob, and Shelob sucks, and all spiders should die painfully.
Yeah. Just keeping it with Ahsoka, the father statue at the very end that he's pointing on is Argonath, or the Pillar of Kings, the two giant statue of kings where the river goes down at the end of Fellowship. It is straight up just that. So
yeah,
Lance.
Oh, I'm out.
Okay, I got a bunch more.
Me too.
Really?
Let's start
I'm
doing
the
two
loser
at a time.
Cool. Go ahead,
so
Matt.
we've talked about it on the show, but Mandalorians are dwarves.
Mhm.
Like, the more that Dave has gotten involved, like, they're big forgers, they're big miners, and Mando Season 3, while it is also a story of the different religious sects coming together, it's the Hobbit. It's the Battle of Five Armies. They're gonna go fight to get their home back, right? And then
There's even a giant dragon in it.
There is even a giant dragon in it. Were you talking about the Mythosaur or the thing that they have to have to
Both.
fight? Yeah.
There's two dragons in it.
Yeah, true. And then I thought this was kind of a stretch, and then I thought about it more. But the Eye of Sion, the massive hyperspace ring in Ahsoka, is like it's the Eye of Sauron. Like, it's not the literal Eye of Thrawn, but it's what they use to get him back. So there's my two, and Zach, I'm sending it back to you.
Yeah, so Inquisitors are essentially Nazgul. They are the ring wraiths. They are fallen kings, fallen Jedi that have been corrupted and now go and seek the ring or people with the Force. So they are pretty, especially when you start to look at it, you're like, wait a second. There's also, throw a small one, but there's wolves in Ahsoka are wargs. They're full on wargs. So in the third draft of A New Hope, George Lucas literally put in word for word text from Lord of the Rings.
Whoa.
At the very beginning, Ben says, "Good morning." Luke says, "What do you mean, good morning? Do you mean that it's good morning for you, or do you wish me a good morning? Although it is obvious I'm not having one, or do you find that mornings in general are good?" Ben, all of them together. That is directly from The Hobbit. "Good morning," said Bilbo, and he meant it. The sun was shining and the grass was very green. But Gandalf looked at him from under a long bushy eyebrows that stuck out further than the brim and his shady hat. He says, "What do you mean?" he said. "Do you wish me a good morning, or mean that it is a good morning whether I want or not? Or that you feel good this morning, or that this is the morning to be good on?" "All of them at once," said Bilbo. So,
right on. That's
George
awesome.
Lucas was a fan.
Well, and further, I didn't know this, but and you never know how much this is real, but supposedly in 1972, George wanted to adapt The Hobbit and couldn't get the rights. We know for sure. I've seen this rumor pop up a couple places, and then supposedly he tried again post Star Wars, couldn't get the rights, and decided to do Willow, right?
Which is... It is Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, and the biggest reason I think there might be credence to this is, number one, that he ended up making Willow, right? And that, number two, it was the same thing with Star Wars. He wanted to get the rights to Flash Gordon, couldn't, and said, well, I'll just go do my own thing, right? And then made Star Wars. But also, I need help from the people that actually know Lord of the Rings lore, which is you guys. But the name Endor, Force Moon of Endor, is very much Endor or Enor, one of the Elvish names for Middle Earth.
So there was an interview with Sir Alec Guinness where he said that when, telling him about Obi-Wan, Lucas described Obi-Wan as a thoughtful, intelligent man of noble bearing, kind and powerful, a cross between Gandalf the Wizard in J.R.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings and the samurai swordsman often played by Toshiro Mifune.
Yeah.
So...
that's cool. Well, and originally he considered Toshiro Mifune to play Obi-Wan Kenobi,
which would have been sick.
Which would have been sick. So this is kind of a deep cut, and this is more of a thematic thing. from the Rise of Skywalker art book. I know that's weird, but those are the only books in the Disney era, or the only things that have given us kind of insight into the making of the sequels, where they'll just put quotes from like story group meetings and whatever else of what people at Lucasfilm had to say when they were breaking story on these movies. So from the Rise of Skywalker art book, Dave Filoni says, I think Luke understands it's not about what he wants, it's not about what he gains, it's frankly about what everybody else gained. Sometimes you have to be the one that carries the burden and becomes the vessel. These aren't characters that go and get married. They don't get over the scar. Frodo carries the ring to Mount Doom, and for the rest of his life is plagued with fear. On certain days he remembers those pains because he has to carry that burden. And Frodo has no peace until he leaves that world. Luke is that character. And quote from Senior Falones himself, if you know, you know.
Falones.
In case anybody doesn't know, that was from a Matt. I called him Mr. Falones, and Zach just riffed Senior Falones because if you know, you know is funny. We should explain so that people aren't like, what the hell? But anyway,
I was literally watching Mandalorian Grogu, and he popped up, and I went, Senior Falones.
You need to make merch for it.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make any sense. Anyway, so, but all that, I think that's, I feel many ways about that. For him to say these aren't characters that go and get married, that feels like a shot across the bow at Mara Jade, right? And just about that whole concept. But I don't know. I think I appreciate the philosophy of this and like kind of the myth of this, that like the same thing happens to Beowulf, right? When he gets old. But I think that kind of flies in the face of the George Lucas fairy tale of it all. He was intentional that Return of the Jedi ends with everybody alive, everybody happy, everybody literally smiling, basically towards the camera. So for him to say, yeah, but Luke stays depressed for the rest of his life until he dies, kind of hits me in a weird way. What about you guys?
I agree with you. I think that there's a very different kind of storytelling between Lord of the Rings, specifically with Frodo, than it is with Luke. Luke doesn't go through that trauma that Frodo does with the ring. Luke is a classic hero throughout the story, just doing hero-y things. So I don't see that there'd be any reason that he would be just sad and depressed and afraid for the entire rest of the story. I don't think that works with the like space opera fantasy motif that Lucas wrote.
Right on. Zach, what about you?
Yeah, I also disagree, and that's part of the reason I don't love that episode of Book of Boba Fett. Like, I feel like we don't get that through line of who Luke is in that original trilogy into Mando and into the sequel trilogy, although I do like The Last Jedi as a movie. Fundamentally, I feel like Last Jedi does it better of being like, oh, he had a moment of weakness, but for him to just give up, it goes against everything that we saw in those three movies. I mean, life happens and people change and all that, but still, I don't think he would be depressed. He saved his dad and saved the galaxy, and it's all about redemption and happiness at the end of those original trilogy. Like, it's all about you did the thing and now it's good. So
yeah, well, we agree. So, Lucasfilm, hire us. But no, I mean, I can definitely see where he's coming from, that you wouldn't be able to just go back and be I guess in the sense that
you would have PTSD probably. You're in a war.
Yeah, absolutely. And that he came, let's not forget, this close to killing Vader.
Yeah.
And becoming Vader 2.0, right? He was a tightrope away, a single swing of the lightsaber away from becoming an agent of evil, like Yoda warned him about. So, like, I get that, and I get him having to deal with that weight. But to me, that's just why he wasn't, I don't know. I see both, now that I've heard both of y'all talking about it. I don't see Luke as ever being able to move into the suburbs and have a wife and kids and just chill and be normal, right? But I would have preferred to see him having his Jedi Academy.
Well, we'll get it.
Well, hey, your lips to Senor Falone's ears. That sounded weirder than I even thought it could sound.
I wasn't sure where that was going.
So anyway, if you got thoughts on all this stuff, email your questions to forcemothersradio@gmail.com or get in the comments. And as long as it is in good faith, one of us, both of us, all three of us will respond. Let's get some good discussions going. We are the force of you, not the force of us. But to get into us, guys, how were y'all's weeks and how were your Star Wars weeks? Let's go, Lance, Zach, me.
Yeah, I was telling Zach before, this is a weird time for me. I'm married to a teacher, and it's summertime, so everybody's home all the time now. So I'm getting used to that again, like I do every June. But other than that, everything is kind of smooth and boring right now, which is how I like it. Star Wars, my Star Wars week. I've been listening to my favorite Star Wars podcast. Yes, it's y'all.
Can you imagine? Listen to my favorite Star Wars podcast, something else.
Well, as long as y'all were in the top 5, I think that'd be okay. But no, I've been listening to y'all's Mando review.
Nice.
Which I appreciate. That's my mowing background is always y'all. And then prepping for SpaceCon next week. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Good week. I took off on Saturday for an all-day long acting intensive. That was so great. I actually had to sign an NDA about it, so I can't talk about it too much. But it was a really awesome class. Really cool just to be in an acting class for 8 hours, which was just awesome. I felt like a nice little sponge soaking up some fun information, and yeah, I don't know what I can and can't talk about it, so I'm not going to talk about it. But I'm doing another one of those late August. I start my improv class again on Friday, so that'll be fun. We'll have our showcase the weekend before Rebel ScumCon, so that'll be a nice little send off, cool. Which I need to request off of that too. And then I've requested off for Rebel ScumCon. I got to request off for my show, and then. Yeah, as far as how Star Wars found me again, went and saw Mando and Grogu again, round 2, just as good as the first, had a wonderful time. I was super tired when I went and saw it because I had a long day, and I was like, oh, this movie still works for me, great. So that was fun. Didn't buy any more popcorn buckets, so, my wallet's a little safer. But yeah, no, it was really great. Saw it with some family friends, some family. It was really great, and I continue to have small conversations about that movie with random people as they see it, which is always fun because they go, "Have you seen it?" I was like, "Oh, buddy, have I seen it?" I got the trading cards on night 1, but it's really just such a wonderful time, and it's so cool to see. So I went with someone who hadn't seen a Star Wars movie in theaters since Revenge of the Sith, and he was like, man, that was just so awesome. He said that it was just such a wonderful experience. He walked out being like, that's the best Star Wars movie ever, which is just so fun. Also, something I didn't notice round 1, did you guys notice that Rada has the Hutt symbol scarred or tattooed into the back of his head?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I did not.
I didn't catch that the first time because it's a blink and you miss it, just back of his head looking at a fighter. But that was such an interesting, tiny little addition. I was like, oh, that's very cool. And things just continued to hit for me for that movie. I love the Jajaric. I love all of the stuff on Nal Hutta, and just what it means for the galaxy moving forward with the Hutts gone and all of that. Really had me thinking about the future of Star Wars, which is what I want a Star Wars movie to do. I want to think of what could happen next? Even though we kind of know what happens next, the First Order comes back and all that, but there's still this hopeful section of what could be in that Star Wars timeline that I think is really fun. What about you, Matt? How was your week?
Yeah. A lot of work happening. I'm prepping to direct 3 shows at once in July, leading right into Rebel ScumCon. So I'm prepping for Madagascar Jr., Something Rotten Jr., and Mary Poppins all at once. And I had kind of a theater weekend. I went to go see Come From Away at Casa Manana here in Fort
So
Worth.
good.
Wonderful show. It was a sobering watch at points. The short version of the story, if you don't know, it's I didn't know it was a Canadian thing, and I was like, that's why my in-laws wanted to see this. But it's this about this small, tiny little island in Canada where a bunch of planes got diverted on September 11th. And it's this based on true stories of how this tiny little community of people ended up welcoming, I think it was like 5 or 10 times the local population at once on one day, completely unexpected. And Canadians being Canadians, they're, they all came together and gave them a bunch of food and whatever else and blah, blah, blah. And everybody's like, oh my God, what can we give you? And they're like, oh, nothing. Just come back and say hi. You'd have done the same thing for me. And, so wonderful little show. And then on the opposite side, I saw High School Musical that some of my kids were in with Second Star Theater Company. And it was High School Musical, but it was as fun as it could possibly be. Shout out all my students that were in it. Y'all did a good job. And you got me to see a High School Musical again for the last time. But as for my Star Wars week, been very, very busy. I've had the opportunity to guest on a couple pods. All these people are always like, when do we get to meet this Zach guy? And I'm like, when he has time. We got to get you on our show so you can meet Zach.
If you're listening, I work 5 nights a week at minimum. So night times just don't work. If you have a podcast in the morning, I'm happy to come on. We record in the mornings. I'm so happy to be a guest on a morning podcast. It's just I work almost every night, and then the nights I don't work, that's my only nights off. So
you want to see friends. I get it.
Or just do nothing.
Yeah.
So I got to guest on Meddler's Corner, and we talked Star Wars and mental health. It was a surprisingly deep conversation. It was a very meaningful conversation, and I seriously hard recommend go check that out. Shout out to Donnie Medler and Clan Brandalorian, which is a fantastic name. And then we are an international situation. I mean, we've already had Canadians on the show, but I guess we're an intercontinental situation because I went on an Australian Star Wars podcast. Odrogs and Hot Pods, which is a wild name. One of them goes by Odie, one of them goes by Rogue. Fantastic show. We debated The Last Jedi, and specifically whether or not it is true to the Star Wars lore. Was happy to say that me and Donnie Medler won the debate for being yes, that it is true to Star Wars lore. Fans of the show know that I'm not always super big on The Last Jedi, but I said everything that I believe about the movie. It is fundamentally true to Star Wars lore. You can say that it's not true to The Force Awakens, because it's not, by design in many ways, but it is absolutely true to Star Wars lore. So check out Oddrogs and Hot Pods when that comes out. It might be out now, but and you can hear me debating The Last Jedi, and it was funny. All 6 people on the show aren't real big Last Jedi fans, but we had a great debate. And then I'm
so sad to have missed that one scheduling wise, because man, I would have been the one guy that was like, this movie's great.
Yeah. Honestly, yes. Because there were a couple of things. It's like, I don't really like this scene, but I like this moment. Mm-hmm. And then the only other way that Star Wars found me, I was listening to Fat Man on Batman for the first time in months. Or I guess it's called Fat Man Beyond now. Mm-hmm. Whatever. It's Kevin Smith's Nerd Podcast. And Mark Bernardin just kind of dropped this little behind-the-scenes Star Wars nugget. He wrote a Mace Windu comic a couple years ago, and he just talked about it. He's like, yeah, the story I pitched them was I wanted to tell the story of how Mace got his purple lightsaber. And they said no. They said, we're not going to do that. With comics, we tell stories around Star Wars canon. We do not create Star Wars canon. And I thought that was really interesting and makes so much sense with the state of Star Wars comics right now. Not that it's bad, but you can tell when they are tap dancing around the story that they wanted to tell in many ways. The Charles Soule Star Wars comic, like every other issue, would lean on someone going, did that even happen? Or is this just a story you're telling me? And he was like, guess you'll never know. Like that happened like so often. So I think that was just the only way he could get things past editorial a lot. But anyway, diving into some news and some sad news, major Star Wars news. Marcia Lucas passed away. If you don't know, she won the Oscar for editing the first Star Wars movie alongside Paul Hirsch and Richard Chew. Of course, George Lucas's first wife. But she, in many ways, in my opinion, is why we are still talking about Star Wars 50 years later. Of things that she added that we know for sure she added to the first Star Wars movie, it was her idea to kill Obi-Wan Kenobi. Into production. Deep into production, Obi-Wan went through the door, closed it when he was fighting Vader, and ran onto the Falcon, and then was just there, and then was talking to Luke through the Force when he's making the trench run. But he was still physically there.
Wow.
And on shooting, George was like, the scene isn't working. I need to figure out something else. And supposedly, you never know how much this is true because it was almost 50 years. It was 50 years ago now they were shooting. Marshall went, why don't you just kill him? That'll up the stakes, and then you can have some kind of weird... I think the quote was, you can do your Force thing or whatever, and have him talking to him from the beyond. And George is like, oh, that's a good idea. This one isn't as for sure. I know that she was majorly instrumental in the structure of the final Death Star battle, but I think it was her idea to have the Death Star targeting the Rebel base. That, for sure, it was just the Death Star was just out there, and there was no real ticking clock. And then someone went, and I think it was Marcia, well, why don't they just attack the Rebel base? And so that's your urgency. And they were all like, oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
You know. But as for a quote from Mark Hamill as to Marcia's contribution, he knows for a fact she was responsible for convincing George to keep the little kiss that Carrie gives him before they jump across the chasm. When they were watching previews with audiences, people would giggle and George wanted to cut it. And Marcia said, George, they're laughing because it's sweet and unexpected. And Mark Hamill said her influence was such that if she wanted to keep it, it stayed in. Similarly, when the little mouse robot comes up, Mark Hamill says, when Harrison and I are delivering Chewbacca to the prison and he roars at the mouse and it screams, George wanted to cut it. And Marcia insisted that he keep it. She was really the warmth and the heart of those original films, a good person he could talk to, bounce ideas off of, and who could tell him when he was wrong.
Yeah.
So, big time legacy. And it was very sad to see her go. But do y'all have anything else on Marcia Lucas?
Yeah. So she, like you said, she is the reason that we have a successful Star Wars today. Her editing skills on the movie are legendary, not alone all of her story contributions, not alone what she might have said behind closed doors, because, you know, if you're collaborators and spouses, you're probably talking about that movie all the time. We don't know how many of her ideas are not credited. But yeah, no, you always hear how she's the heart of Star Wars, and it's really sad to see her go. And after their divorce, they stayed friends and collaborators as well, which just tells you a little about her as a person. And, you know, divorce, I imagine, is messy, as I've seen many times. But the fact that they could stay friends and collaborators, and just how involved she was in Star Wars, it's very, very sad to see her go.
Yeah.
100%.
So I read a couple of different things I thought was interesting about her influence. In the trench run, it was just going to be purely this action scene of just Luke going through and managing that trench. But she was insistent that they cross-cut it back and forth to all of his loved ones watching in fear as he's doing this, to kind of keep the emotional stakes and not just the action stakes in what was happening.
Yeah.
But she also, and this is a lot more macro, George wanted to tell like 3 different intertwining stories. He wanted to tell Luke as he's, you know, developing from this farm boy to this hero. He wanted to tell this love story of Han and Leia, and then he wanted to tell the story of the villains. And he was going to cross back and forth between these 3 stories throughout the movie. And Marcia came in and said that you needed to keep one character central, keep Luke central, and only involve the peripheral characters and how they respond to Luke. And so some of that was done in editing, but a lot of that was done actually, before shooting in the storyboarding section, where they rewrote everything to have this one central line through the movie. And so that's what created kind of the seed of the Skywalker saga.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it wouldn't have been a Luke Skywalker movie. He would have been in the movie.
Wow.
Crazy.
Huge.
Crazy. But yeah, rest in peace, Marcia Lucas. She, and also, I should shout out one of my favorite Star Wars podcasts, Force Center. One of their hosts, Jennifer Landa, has a great documentary on YouTube called The Marcia Lucas Effect. It's nice and short. It's like 26-minute long, and it condenses basically just her whole life story, editing career, her struggles as being a woman editor in the late 60s, early 70s, when a lot of dudes were like, nah, you don't do that. This is our time. And just her relationship with George and how it affected Star Wars. Hard recommend Force Center and the Marcia Lucas Effect. I'll put the link in the doobly-doo below. But yeah, just Google Marcia Lucas, look her up. We said most of her contributions, but she, in many ways, she's a lot of why we're still talking about Star Wars today. But okay, gentlemen, the time has come! I guess I should say it's time for your franchise fight! Lord of the Rings versus Star Wars, the ultimate space fantasy versus the ultimate high fantasy. Two of the most influential works of fiction in the West, if not ever, in modern human history. And we're going to score this fairly, and by we, I mean me. But before we get into the debates, I'm going to hit you with a surprise this or that. Every one of these, Lance answer, then Zach.
All
okay.
right.
Would you rather fly an X-Wing or fly on a giant eagle?
X-Wing.
X-Wing.
Anakin's lightsaber or Anduril?
Oh, Anakin's lightsaber.
I'm going to go Anduro.
Okay. Better father figure, Darth Vader or Denethor? That's proud of that one.
Vader, just because of that redemption at the end.
I also would say Vader.
Yeah. Yeah.
Denethor sucks.
Okay, R2 and 3PO or Merry and Pippin?
Merry and Pippin.
I'm actually going to go R2 and 3PO.
Okay, scarier monster, the dragon snake or Shelob? You don't get to answer, it's Shelob. I don't care. I will hear no
Shelob.
other options, it's Shelob.
Shelob's terrifying.
Better evil minions, stormtroopers or orcs?
Orcs.
Orcs are actually effective. Orcs actually kill and hit people.
Meat's back on the menu, boys. Better trilogy, the Star Wars original trilogy or the Lord of the Rings trilogy?
Star Wars original trilogy.
I'm going to go Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Well, we'll see if you do the same here. Better prequel trilogy, the Star Wars prequels or the Hobbit movies?
The Star Wars prequels.
The Star Wars prequels.
Okay, I think this is super interesting, actually. Better resurrection story, Gandalf the White or Darth Maul?
Darth Maul.
Gandalf.
But only by little.
Yeah, I'm going to go Gandalf.
Right on.
It's more impactful on the story.
There you go. Love that. Okay.
Yeah, I'll take that.
So now, it's time for franchise fights! Lord of the Rings versus Star Wars. So first, the challenger, defended by Zachary Owen Turner, one of the most complex and influential works of Western fiction ever made. This legendary series of novels that first began in 1937 have inspired 10 film and animation adaptations, won 21 BAFTAs, 4 Golden Globes, 17 Academy Awards, The Fellowship, The Return of the King, The Nazguls, Elves, Dwarves, Ents, and Hobbits, the one trilogy to rule them all, The Lord of the Rings! And the reigning champ, at least as proven on this podcast by defeating Dune about a year ago. Defended by Lance Candler, the 13 film giant, Adjusting for inflation, the first entry is the second highest grossing film of all time. 27 Academy Awards, hundreds of books, TV shows, comics, and has spawned constant new iterations for 49 years. The Jedi, the Sith, the Force, Star Wars!
Isn't it so clear already? I mean, come on.
All right, so we're going to have a 3-minute opening argument. Then we're going to have 90-second rebuttals. Then I'm going to do some follow-up questions. And then you will each have a 1-minute closing argument. I got to get out my coin for the coin flip. It's going to be very difficult to flip a coin in these tight quarters, but shout out Paul Hyde. I'm going to flip this commemorative challenge coin with Peter Mayhew on it. Rest in peace, Chewbacca. So, heads, tails. Zach, as even though this is your podcast, as the challenger, what do you want, heads or tails?
I'll take heads. It's
Okay.
got Peter Mayhew's face
Here
on
we
it.
go. I didn't. Do you want me to do it in camera? I didn't
that's fine.
cheat, but okay. Unfortunately, it is tails. So Lance is gonna go. Or I guess Lance, we'll do it this way. Since you won, do you want to go first, or do you want to defer?
No, I want to defer. I want Zach to go first.
Okay,
All right.
I was gonna say we'll do it. We'll do it football style. You can take the ball, or you can kick it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Receive.
So, I'm going to do it this way. That's dumb. Why would I do it any other way? I was about to put a timer on the computer when I have a laptop in my hand.
Millennial.
All right. Zach, round 1 is about to begin. Your 3-minute argument for why Lord of the Rings
let me
is
get some
better.
water. Hold on.
Okay.
I get dry mouth, you know?
And go.
Now, as a co-host of a Star Wars podcast, I respect my opponent greatly. However, when it comes to franchises, there is one that might beat it, and that is Lord of the Rings. Not only a book series that has sold over 150 million copies, but also an amazing set of movies. Tolkien's work has become a basis and inspiration for all modern forms of fantasy, including Star Wars. A world that has been so deep and rich with lore that it is able to form languages that you can actually speak. Stories with rich complexity and emotional depth that are unrivaled. A film series with a unified vision and direction that is flawlessly executed. Music that rivals Star Wars. Characters that are rich, consistent, and have complexity. Diverse plot lines that seamlessly all work together, and a through-line vision that provides a coherence in tone and story. There would be no Star Wars without Lord of the Rings. Father trauma doesn't carry the series. For a series talking about Star Wars that prides itself on hope, Samwise Gamgee is a more hopeful character than any Star Wars character. Strong female characters abound, and a TV show that's amazing. Gimli and Legolas are much better sidekicks than R2 and 3PO. The Death Star escape is essentially just the Mines of Moria, with Obi-Wan/Gandalf saying run/fly you fools. Lord of the Rings has political intrigue that is rich and engaging and interesting. Tolkien actually fought in World War II, and his war writing has a weight and realism behind it that just hits different. Now, Matt talked about awards. Star Wars has been nominated 37 times for Oscars and has won 7 times across 13 movies. Lord of the Rings has 30 nominations and 17 wins in only 3 movies, adding another 7 nominations from the Hobbit trilogy, matching it and beating it on wins. Return of the King, specifically, swept all 11 Oscars it was nominated for, including Best Picture and Director. Star Wars has never won a Best Picture, and A New Hope is the only film that has been nominated. And while both Lucas and Tolkien wanted to create modern mythologies, Tolkien's world building is more dense and actually reads out and plays like mythology with great nuance. Lastly, the franchise has known that quality is better than quantity, and if The Lord of the Rings is so bad, why is my opponent currently reading The Silmarillion, the densest, hardest book to read out of all of his works? I cede my time.
Sorry, that last one broke me.
All right.
If it's so bad, why is he reading the hardest one?
Yeah.
That was awesome. All right, Lance, your opening argument for why Star Wars is better. Go.
Okay. So I want to start off by saying that I like The Lord of the Rings. I've read The Hobbit. I've read The Silmarillion twice. And I've read The Lord of the Rings. I've watched the movies dozens of times. I really have. All different versions of them. So when I say Star Wars is better, I'm not speaking out of ignorance or because I don't understand what The Lord of the Rings is. I'm speaking as someone who has done all of the homework that you can do. The argument for The Lord of the Rings usually boils down to one thing. Tolkien invented modern fantasy. And I can agree with that. I think that's true. But nobody argues that the Model T is better than the Ferrari simply because it came first. Lord of the Rings is important. Star Wars is better. And here's why. First, Star Wars tells a better story. At its core, Star Wars is about choices. Luke chooses hope over fear. Han chooses sacrifice over his selfishness. Vader chooses redemption over power. The major moments happen because the characters make those decisions. The Lord of the Rings is different. The central mission, which is essentially to toss a piece of jewelry into a volcano, when the moment for that finally arrives, the hero fails. He doesn't do it. Frodo claims the ring for himself for the love of the power. The ring is only destroyed because Gollum bites off the finger, slips, and falls into the lava. The Death Star was destroyed because of heroism, sacrifice, trust, and the Force. The ring was destroyed through greed, ultimately gravity, and a catastrophic workplace safety violation. There should have been a railing. Second, Star Wars has better characters. Han Solo changes more in one movie than Legolas does in the 3,000 years of his life. Aragorn spends 3 books becoming king. Luke spends 3 movies becoming a completely different person. Most Tolkien characters are just strict textbook archetypes. Most Star Wars characters are people. Third, let's talk about pacing, which is my favorite one. Lord of the Rings fans call it world building. The rest of us call it them walking. Tolkien never met a hill that he couldn't spend 30 pages trying to describe. Every Lord of the Rings fan eventually says, which my opponent said, the real story here is the lore. That's not a defense. That's an admission. Nobody finishes Star Wars and says the movies were okay, but let me tell you about the 4,000 years of genealogy. People remember the story, the characters, and the adventure. That's the difference. Tolkien built a world and then placed a story inside of it. George Lucas built a story and then created a world around it.
10 seconds.
One asks what happens next. The other asks, would you like another song about elves? Lord of the Rings may be the grandfather of fantasy, but Star Wars is the better story.
On the button.
I practiced.
Okay.
I practiced with a timer for the last 3 or 4 days.
Okay.
Excellent points.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. All right. I have no idea what the score is right now, so I'm not going to say anything. Fantastic arguments. It's rebuttal time. Mm-hmm. Zach, you are up first. 90 seconds. Let's go.
Now, my opponent says that it tells a better story because it's all about choices, and that Lord of the Rings isn't about choices. Frodo chooses to carry the ring. He chooses to sacrifice all of his goodness and heart to carry a thing that he willingly knows will try and corrupt him. A ring that he saw his uncle lust after, physically deforming his face. He still chooses to carry that weight. And Samwise chooses to carry him. He chooses to follow blindly, leaving everything that they know behind. The Fellowship comes together despite all of their differences to choose to defeat the evil. Something that Star Wars does as well. But you want to talk about work-safe railings. The Death Star has no railings anywhere. Han Solo falls off a railing to die. The laser has no railings. Railings is not an argument. Aragorn is a strict archetype. What are you talking about? He is a reluctant king. He is one that chooses. Does the hero's journey just like Luke. He refuses the call. He doesn't want to be king. He is conflicted. I don't think he's a strict archetype at all. And the fact that you said that Lord of the Rings, you watch the movie and then go, oh, let me tell you about the 4,000 years of genealogy. How wonderful is that you get to go, hey, I know you loved that. Guess what? There's more.
We're
and
at
you
time. Okay. Okay. So, moving this right along. Lance, your rebuttal. 90 seconds.
Okay.
Go.
First of all, as someone who has done the homework, Aragorn's reluctancy is a Peter Jackson thing. He's largely already agreed to be king throughout the entire Lord of the Rings novel series, which is the original source. So yeah, he's just an archetype in the books. Secondly, if we want to talk about the depth of the Lord of the Rings lore, that's great, but depth is not measured in page count. Phone books are really long. That doesn't make them good. The world building is unmatched, but the world building is supposed to support the story. And the problem with Lord of the Rings is the world building is the story. Frodo's failure at the end negates a lot of what his character is supposed to be developing throughout the story. If he had just tossed the ring in at the end, I think that would have been better. I think it's interesting that he didn't, but I don't think it makes it good.
And he cedes his time. Okay, so moving into follow-up questions. Zach, to address it directly, what do you have to say to critics who think The Lord of the Rings is boring?
I don't think it's boring. I think especially the movies do a wonderful job at creating a cinematic experience. I think they improve the source material, as movies often do. They get to be adaptations. I think the adaptations are wonderful, including The Rings of Power. To people that say that, it's all about walking or all about hills, there's also beautiful landscapes and sceneries that Star Wars focuses on. Luke walks through a swamp for half a movie when trying to find Yoda. I mean, half of it is him walking through swamps, doing training and all that. The walking that they're doing is supporting the story. They're chasing down the bad guys. It's the same as if the ships... I'm sorry they don't have starships to go and fly after, or, Last Jedi run away from the bad guys for half a movie in ships. It's the same thing. It's a story device to go and see. It's a story about journeys. It's about the journey, and sometimes journeys are long and hard.
Right on. Okay, Lance, similar vibe. This wasn't a Zach argument, but this is a common Star Wars criticism. What do you have to say to critics that say Star Wars is thin, disposable, and exclusively for kids?
I think that it's way more about real life than that. I think that I think I can understand where people are coming from, because I think the great thing about Star Wars is that it works on a thin level. It works on a disposable level. It works on a popcorn, watch the movie, and move on and never think about it again level. But Star Wars will give you as much as you give it. So if the more effort and time and thought that you put into the story, the more depth and layers and interest and complexities come out of it.
Okay. Zach. And so make your argument here. How does Lord of the Rings show a better depiction of the corruption of evil than Star Wars does?
So that's a very interesting question, first off, because you do have Anakin, who is the fall to evil, in one of the best examples of corruption. I think Lord of the Rings does a better job at showing corruption on multiple levels, rather than just through one character or two characters. I think it shows the corruption of kings. It shows the corruption of people through their subordinates, as in Wormtongue and the King of Rohan. It shows that power and evil and even society can corrupt more vastly and widely than just on a few characters. Star Wars does it too. I mean, they do show a little bit of the political corruption and how, Palpatine can rise to power. But I feel like with Star Wars, it's more about, look at all of the manipulation I'm doing to do this, rather than just being like, hey, I have 9 rings here, and all of you kings can be super powerful. And they go, ha, yep, and then they become ring wraiths. It is a corruption. It is tapping into that, humanist part of us that goes, oh, I want power. Oh, I want this. The greed, as Lance said, even in Frodo, who is someone who doesn't want power or has no want of power, no want of success. He just wants to be at home, chilling it in his house. And he too is corrupted by this thing that is just too strong for him.
Right on. So, Lance, exact same question. How does Star Wars show a better depiction of the corruption of evil?
I think Lord of the Rings shows a fantastic view of corruption of evil. I really do. I think everything that Zach said is right. If I was going to make the argument that Star Wars was better at it, I think that would be difficult, because I think that Star Wars has some deeper layers to it. I think Anakin's corruption into Darth Vader is not as easy as evil corrupting good. I think it's about heartbreak and pain and fear corrupting, not just evil. I think that Lord of the Rings makes a very easy, visually accessible view of corruption. When you look at specifically the elves being corrupted into orcs, I know I'm making his point, but his point is good. If you on what's the name of the TV show?
Rings of Power.
Rings of Power. Thank you. The main orc, that I can't remember his name. There's this great scene in the last season where he gets reduced back to his elvish true form.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see him go back to being an elf again. And it really shows this view of corruption, but it's really simple and it's really one for one. Whereas Star Wars, there's so many more human emotions that go through it. The real corruption, the real evil that we see in Star Wars is Palpatine, but we never see Palpatine get corrupted. Palpatine's corrupted from the very beginning. He's evil from the very beginning. So I don't know that nice, clean storybook evil corruption exists in a story like Star Wars.
Yeah.
May I just add on a little bit, because Anakin is essentially Sauron. If you go back into the Silmarillion lore and all that, of a good heavenly body angel. He is a Maiar that is sent down to do good things, being corrupted by Morgoth. And so he is not evil from the beginning. He also falls as Anakin does. Just to add on that.
Right on.
There are some similarities there.
Yes.
I think you listed all of them, but yeah, there are some similarities there.
So, Zach, specifically, before we get into closing arguments, Lance has repeatedly said that the world building is the story. What is your response to that? That it is the story of Lord of the Rings. What's your response to that?
I think Star Wars does a lot of the same things that Lord of the Rings does. I mean, Obi-Wan drops the Clone Wars in a little dialogue with Luke, and then that becomes lore later and becomes more story. I think to build a good story, to build a good world, you have to have lore behind it. Now, did Tolkien literally start from like the inception of a world and then be like, oh, cool, this would be a really fun place to put the story in? Because he started with The Hobbit. He wrote The Hobbit first. He wrote it for his kids. He built this world, and then he's like, oh, let's write this fun adventure. And if you read The Hobbit, it's great. The movies are okay, but that book is snappy and fun in a way that Lord of the Rings is sometimes long. Not sometimes, often long. I will secede that point that sometimes those books are long. The movies, however, I think are an improvement and fun. I don't think that having too much lore is bad. It creates the opportunity to use it whenever you need it. we have lore as a society. All of our modern stories come from lore. All of our modern storytelling come from the lore of our planet and world. Us as humans want to create lore at all times. I mean, Greek mythology, any religion you could look at it, you could argue is just creating lore for us beings to know what we want out of life and to create a moral compass and to help society have, flow and rule and law to it. So I don't think having too much lore is a bad thing. And I think if it just creates opportunity, as does Star Wars, where you're like, oh man, I watched A New Hope and I want to know about the Clone Wars. He mentioned that. Cool, I can go back and watch 7 seasons of a Clone Wars now. If you're watching Lord of the Rings and you're watching, Fellowship, and he's like, oh yeah, my uncle Bilbo had a whole adventure with a dragon. You can go back and look at a whole adventure with a dragon, and then you're there and you're like, oh, look at these dwarves. I wonder what happened there. Cool, we can go back even more and find that out. And just, I think something about it being terrestrial, it helps certain audiences, relate with that a little bit more too. But
okay. So actually I'm going to do the same thing. Let's kind of the same question, same concept of question. To get into it specifically, why is Star Wars better at world building than Lord of the Rings?
Because I think Star Wars keeps the story central. The story could happen in any setting. It doesn't have to be in space with the Jedi and with all the things that Lucas put together for the world. It could happen anywhere. It could happen in any time, in any setting. In fact, it's largely a samurai story, right? But the lore, the setting, the world complements the story. Whereas Tolkien, and I've read, I won't say I've read everything that Tolkien's written on this, but I've read a lot of it. And he was obsessed with every aspect of his IP that was not the story, The Lord of the Rings. He wrote and wrote and wrote and changed and changed and changed. And you get 1,000 pages on the migratory patterns of early elves, right? But none of it is about the story. None of it treats the Lord of the Rings story as the climax of that world, even though it is the climax of the Third Age. So it's the difference between, wouldn't it be cool if we created a language? Wouldn't it be cool if we created a setting for that language? Wouldn't it be cool if we created these characters and this backstory for the creation of this world? And then we're going to set this little story that happens in, 35, 40 years of that world. Or let's tell this compelling story of these characters that have arcs and change and development. And then the setting is second to that.
Okay. Man, y'all are making good arguments. Okay. But let's move into closing arguments.
Mm-hmm.
So, Zach, you're going to go first. I'm going to give you 1 minute.
Yeah.
Closing argument based on everything we've talked about and whatever else you want to say. Why is Lord of the Rings better than Star Wars? Go.
First off, I have to say a really wonderful job to Lance. All of his arguments are compelling and thought out and wonderful. And as he said, he has done the homework, as I have done on Star Wars. It is, what we're really doing is picking pins and needles, right? They're both wonderful. They're both amazing. We both love both, which is awesome. To me, it just comes down to, it is a story that has rich complexity and I think is just executed better, especially when you take trilogy versus trilogy, Lord of the Rings versus OG. I think it has a better through line, it has a better flow of it, and a more consistent through vision rather than just kind of coming up with it on the spot. You have the benefit of having a source material that is so wonderful and rich to take, improve, make better, and to create just a compelling trilogy with wonderful storylines.
Time. Wow. On the button. Okay. Fascinating. All right. Lance, this is the end of it. This is the final round. We got 1 minute. Why is Star Wars better? Go.
So we've talked a lot about Tolkien's influence. We've talked about how he's created the modern fantasy structure, how he changed literature in mid-century, how he built this incredible world. And I agree with all of that, but that's not the answer that we're debating. The question isn't which franchise is more influential. The question is which franchise is better. One gave us Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, Darth Vader, lightsabers, the Force, the Death Star, and some of the best lines and best models and best developments in film in history. The other told us why elves are always sad. Lord of the Rings deserves our respect for what it is, but Star Wars deserves the win. May the Force be with you.
Oh my gosh. Okay. All right.
It's hard being in that seat, isn't it, Matt?
Yeah, man. Well, okay. Fantastic arguments. I'm just gonna go through. Lance won the rebuttals for me. Just basically by pointing out that Aragorn's reluctancy is a Peter Jackson creation. Just to say that,
we're arguing movies, not books. Are we?
No, it's franchise versus franchise.
Okay, we're arguing franchises.
Hey, the arguments are done. The arguments are done. It was the same thing, Dune versus Star Wars. Lance was like, one movie is better, or what? It doesn't matter. The point is, we're arguing the franchise. You made me Kermit. Congratulations.
I was gonna say, Matt looks like a Muppet about half of the time.
I think Lance won the first follow-up question. Just for me, I thought the points were better. Star Wars works with just based on the arguments. That more about real life. You can get out of it as much as you give into it. But then Zach won the second question. How is Lord of the Rings a better depiction of the corruption of evil? For me,
it is a better depiction of the.
The arguments are over. But then I thought you both had great points about world building. But based on the arguments, can't believe I was going to say this. Looking over everything that I wrote down.
Don't.
I think Lord of the Rings won today.
Boo.
I'm really
shocked,
surprised
honestly.
by this. I'm shocked.
I held back. I shouldn't have held back.
I felt it.
You know what the best part? Lance made half of my arguments for me.
Well, yeah. I mean, a lot of. I gotta say, a lot of the questions that were asked, like the answer was like, Lord of the Rings might be better.
Oh, and going off of the initial things, like when you brought up like workplace thing, that Zach was like, "My man, Star Wars has no railings."
That was just for the punchline. That wasn't really
that,
there.
I was like, and that is I don't remember the last time I watched the Lord of the Rings movie top to bottom. Nothing against it.
I will say,
I'm just a busy guy.
As a fan,
no, it's great if you need a screensaver.
I throw on Lord of the Rings more often in the background than I do Star Wars, and
that's where it belongs, in the background.
I never would have thought in a million billion years that I was going to go. That's not true. Okay,
Heartbreaking.
Me personally, it's not close. Right? It's not close. But
that just means I did a bad job.
No, Lance.
It might also. I mean,
Lance,
maybe I'll rewatch
you
it.
did a wonderful job.
Lance,
thank you,
both
Zach.
of you. Both of you did a wonderful job. It might also be me going, I don't want to homer this because I know where I sit. And so I was really, really honing in on everything y'all were saying.
And Zach took that shot. He said, like, if it's so bad, then why is my opponent reading the Silmarillion? And I wanted to say, if it's so good, then why aren't you reading it?
I am reading it.
But I
didn't. You should have said that.
I am
that would have counted.
I didn't.
You are
'Cause
reading it? I thought you weren't.
I downloaded it this morning. Hey, look, anyone who reads the Silmarillion got to be a huge fan because that book is hard to get through. I will
it's
secede that
rough.
point. That book is hard to read.
I have started Fellowship of the Ring twice and yet to finish. Granted, I'm not a big reader. It is. I wouldn't
rough.
make it through.
I wouldn't say that should be anyone's entry point into Lord of the Rings. Hobbit should be your entry point. Hobbit.
Yeah.
Hobbit
Hobbit's readable.
is such a fun read, and it doesn't read like a textbook. Lord of the Rings sometimes reads like a textbook, and even to me, I'm like, this. Come on, like, can we move it a little bit?
And
He
it's-
needed a Marcia Lucas.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, honestly.
Which is why Peter Jackson works so great in creating the movies. Like, they are able to, especially with the second book, the way that the Two Towers is a better movie than it is a book. Hands down, because they're able to create and reorder things so that it actually creates
Tension.
yeah, momentum. But
Lance is spicy because I wanted to spice in the debate, man. Like,
He said from the beginning, he said, I didn't write anything bad about Star Wars. It's all going to be nice and clean. And so I was like, okay, I don't want to be the jerk here.
I love Dune. I said spicy Dune stuff that was an exaggerated version of how I feel about it. Because
I love Lord of the Rings lore.
Yeah.
I made fun of the elves. I love learning about all the different tribes of elves and what they did after they woke up. And what happened with the dwarves and the creation of the dwarves. I think all that stuff is so interesting. It's not a story, but it's interesting.
Well, and just to get into like my personal feelings, part of why I don't get into Lord of the Rings is like I'm going to be so honest. I don't like the Two Towers. I have tried to watch it on multiple occasions. I think it's so boring. I think it is so boring. I love Fellowship. I think that movie rocks. I think that movie's great. It moves. I just don't care about all the subplots in the Two Towers. I've tried. Sorry, I'm making everybody mad. I just picked Lord of the Rings, so I am fair. But I have tried on multiple occasions, and I just get bored.
But the Battle of Helm's Deep is fantastic.
The Battle of Helm's Deep is dope. That's the last hour of a 3-hour movie.
Yeah, and when they're talking to Treebeard, and Treebeard's like, ooh, it's like, oh, it takes forever to say anything. I thought that fits the pacing of this movie.
Well, that's where I'm at. It's that like world building is cool, but for me, I know my personal preference is characters under pressure making tough decisions. Period. And so when it's, well, we're going to talk about the decisions for a long time. It's like, can you make the decision or tell me why it's hard and quit having a tree conference? I'm going to go get work done.
Two Towers is the Attack of the Clones of the of the series. So.
Oh yeah, we don't even have to talk about it. Attack of the Clones is like, I'm creepy, but you like me, right? And she's like, no, okay, yes, and I've never
but I'm going to wear
understood.
this ribbon dress while I tell you no.
Well, and that I've been dying a little each day since you came back into my life. Yeah, because you suck. But anyway,
Two Towers better than that. At least acting and character-wise.
That's interesting. What's a better fight, Helm's Deep or the Battle of Geonosis?
Helm's Deep.
Yeah, not even close.
It's
right?
so cool. It's arguably the best battle of the trilogy.
I would say not arguably. It's the best battle of the trilogy.
I mean, the last battle is cool too, but
it's the same.
Yeah.
It's all the same.
Yeah.
You got there's two flavors to the Lord of the Rings. They're walking or they're having a CGI fight.
Yeah.
That's really.
Do you think that they should? So just fun Lord of the Rings stuff. At the end, in the end battle, Aragorn fights an orc, right? In that last thing, or not an orc, a troll. That originally was going to be Sauron, reinterpreted as like it was supposed to be him doing the big old battle, and they were supposed to fight. I think they should have done it. They were like, well, it's not in the source material. I don't know. And they pulled it. And I was like, no, that would have been so cool. Like, we used that armor once.
That's the point of a movie. That's the point of an adaptation. I've read the thing already. Give me the characters and the truth of the characters is a new thing. But
also,
in closing,
if you want, Matt, if you haven't watched Rings of Power, it moves at a pace that's cool and fun. For season 1 it has a dip, but season 2 is like just money.
That's the thing. I started the first episode, and 30 minutes in, I was like, I literally don't care about anything that's happening. I'm going to go do something else. I was bored. So, and maybe that's my lack of intelligence or ADHD or whatever, but I was just like, I truly don't care about anything that's happening, and I'm 30 minutes in. I'm going to go do something else. So,
I think I would struggle with it if I hadn't read the backstory. Like if I wasn't watching it, waiting for this stuff to happen that has only ever been written down, I think I would have been bored. But then they screw with all of that too. Yeah. But is it better than what Tolkien wrote? Arguably, I don't know.
Yeah,
I like it.
Hey, I'm down to do a commentary track for The Two Towers and get people to convince me why that movie rocks.
7 hours long.
It'll be at max 3 hours long.
We would have to watch the extended edition.
We will not. That will not happen. I'm not going to release a 4-hour podcast episode. Anyway, in closing,
with 30 minutes of silence while we're all just watching.
In closing, so on December 14th, 2012, tying in with the release of, I think it was the first Hobbit movie, Dave Filoni wrote an article for StarWars.com. It was called Loving the Hobbit and Building the Clone Wars. He tells a story about George Lucas insanely casually bringing his friend Peter Jackson over to visit Lucasfilm and literally walking into the booth and going, "Hey, show Peter what you're working on." And Dave Filoni looks over and it's Peter Jackson. And all that he had to show him was previs for the Clone Wars movie. And then another time when Daniel Falconer, who was one of the Lord of the Rings movie designers, visited Lucasfilm just to work on something, probably sound or whatever. And he met with Dave and he talked about how they regularly have the Clone Wars night, like kind of the Lord of the Rings crew, and would get together and watch Clone Wars.
Oh.
But in closing this article, Filoni says, there seems to be a bond between these two worlds, Star Wars and Lord of the Rings. I guess we all just love the sense of adventure, the sense of wonder, and the feeling of hope that we get from these stories. Whether it be facing a stampede of Oliphants or a squadron of attacking AT-ATs, these are the stories we all grew up with, and we're fortunate to live in a time where we can continue to tell these stories and pass them on to future generations. So that's Senior Filone's closing us out. I can't believe that I picked Lord of the Rings. Zach, well done.
Thanks. Essentially, we're just talking about two stories about hope and how wonderful that we can debate two stories about such hope and, triumph over evil and,
Yeah. But listeners, watchers, leave your thoughts in the comments below or at forceofothersradio@gmail.com. Do all the things, like, subscribe. If you're new, let us know what you liked and what you didn't like. And just don't be a jerk about it. Well, be a jerk if you want, but be a respectful jerk. Lance, I am very sorry that you are now 0 for 2 as a... I remember so specifically after we did the Dune fight, that we talked about how you were gonna represent Star Wars. You said that'll be so much easier. I think you chose the path of the light side. And I think I watched you choose to be nice today, and I don't know.
Okay. It's time. You better watch your text thread. It's coming. Gandalf is such a loser character. It's coming.
Well, okay. Well, see, I kind of wanted it. You have given so many Lord of the Rings burns in the last 2 years of this show, and you really only did like 1 or 2.
Because you two are so kind and nice, and it's one of the things I love about this show, and so I don't want to be the one that comes on here and is a jerk.
I was not kind to Dune. I'd said everything that I agree with, but I said the most, inciting version of the language. So gotta get the claws out, I think, dog. I also thought, I was sitting here going, because both of y'all made great arguments. Maybe in the future franchise fights we don't pick a winner and we let the audience decide.
That's a good idea.
Because I was like, this sucks. All the arguments were good.
That's it. I'll lose twice and then you move the goalpost so that I start winning. I like that. I just want you to know that your dad is going to be thrilled. He's such a Lord of the Rings fan. I practiced this whole argument with him the other day.
Yeah, but all of his comments will be about how, but you didn't even bring up all the real reasons that Lord of the Rings is better. It's just too smart for you, Matthew. Anyway, but yeah, Lance alluded to it earlier. What?
Just
a little window into how that works. Okay,
Lance and I with popcorn in the window.
Yeah.
We'll do another one, and I'll debate why I like Star Wars better. But anywho, so Lance mentioned it next weekend. I was about to say January, June 12th through the 14th, right?
Mm-hmm.
He and I will be at SpaceCon San Antonio. Very
Zach.
excited.
Oh,
Yeah, Zach will come down for River Scum Con.
I'm probably going to go to New York Comic Con, and you guys probably won't be able to come to that, so it's fine.
When is that?
October.
Oh, yeah, I can't do that.
I can't do another one.
Yeah.
I'm already gonna do.
We're already doing Celebration.
Within one calendar year, there will be 3 of these.
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah, but we'll be at SpaceCon San Antonio. First time I've been at San Antonio for a while. I'm very excited. If you have ideas for some Star Wars thing that I should do in front of the Alamo, let me know. Everybody. Lance was like, you could do content in front of the Alamo. I was like, what? what could it be?
If you want to do Lord of the Rings content, you could do the speech of "I would get to the very heart of you." Aragorn's battle scene.
Nobody has stayed awake that long.
That would take the heart of me.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. All right, anyway, so yeah, let us know if I got it right. Let us know if they got it right. Let us know who got what right and what wrong. But yeah. Zach, you got anything else to say for the people before we let them go?
No. Again, I love Star Wars, and we both love Star Wars and Lord of the Rings. These fights are fun, but I'm glad it was civil because if you were out there, arguing with your friends about what's better, be nice. Have some fun. It's all fandom, and we're all nerds, and so, love each other. Be hopeful, and yeah.
I'm just laughing. I know Lance is so mad.
I can't believe I lost on a Star Wars podcast.
I also can't believe you
lost
on a Star Wars podcast. I was sitting here going over my notes, and I was like, wow. Anyway, but yeah. Get involved in the show, and we'll get you involved. And if you're at SpaceCon San Antonio and you're listening, be shameless. Walk up to me. Say hi. And that being said, remember, we are not the force of others. You are. And the force of others will be with you.
Always. The podcast behind the worlds ahead. And there are many fandoms to be fed through movies to the edge of thought until the hearts are all alight. Books and comics, sci-fi and fantasy.